Hello and welcome to the latest of our Catholic Concern for Animals YouTube vlogs. And today we're delighted to have with us Resty from Uganda, who will be talking to us about the situation in Uganda and the situation with respect to creation and the wildlife in Uganda and the way in which things are going over there. So Resty, welcome. Tell us a little about yourself and your involvement in the church.
Wow, thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this meeting. I'm Resty from Uganda, Masaka diocese. I work with the youth specifically. It's Masaka Diocesan Youth Organization. We have very many activities we are handling. In 2019, I happened to meet Chris Fegan, who introduced Catholic Concern for Animals. We picked him from the airport as we were coming back to Masaka. He told us different things about the Catholic Concern for Animals, and I felt much touched. Then when in the words he told us, he said that we should learn to take care of animals. Animals are part of creation, and very many things here we didn't know about animals. We thought that maybe animals were material things which we could possess, and we were like, oh, the community needs to know all about this. Since we work with the youth and the young children, we decided to take Chris first to the bishop, who amended him, and we partnered with him. So when we went to the communities, Chris was so glad. He told the communities that animals are part of nature, are part of God's creation, and the communities were like, no, but here, here in Masaka, we take animals to be as like property. People could think that animals do exist for them. Very many think that we keep animals to eat them as food and to get other byproducts from them. So on hearing Catholic concerns for animals, yet we are dealing with youths and children, we wanted to teach them the different things that Chris had told us. So we went to one of the parishes, he explained to us, and we were like, oh, yes, he has a point. But we were missing it out because for us, we didn't know that we had to take much care for the animals, simply because we thought they were our material things, they were our property. And a case to note is that here in Uganda, we are majorly farmers. We do plant crops and we rear animals. The most reared animals are the goats, the cows, the pigs, the sheep, and some of the farmers do keep chicken in their homes. But unfortunately, most of them do not know how to handle those animals which were created in God's image, because all of them knew that they were ours and we have the control over each and everything. So yes, but worst of it all is like the major farmers we have the farmers who rear animals on a large scale, and majority of the people in our communities do rear animals on a small scale, and these are the very people who can rarely earn $1 a day. So here comes the problem. When you have an animal and you're not able to feed yourself, but again, still you have to look to ways of feeding the animals. So at the end of the day, you find that the animals are being starved because this farmer cannot even provide for herself. Then it will be hard for her to provide for the animals. And they were like, no, what I should do, if I get food as a human being, for the animal, it should eat leftovers. So here I was very much concerned. I was like, no, these people should know the value of animals. They do not only exist for themselves, for them, the human beings, but they exist for themselves and God. I was so impressed when Chris told us that when he slept in a mosquito net, when we invited him to our press, he failed to beat the mosquito. But here, mosquitoes do bite people and they cause malaria. So when Chris was explaining to the people in the communities, he was like, you know, when it came into my room, I was in under the mosquito net. You get my point? So he decided not to beat it. He had to leave it the other way as himself is under the net. And it was his first experience because he told us that he had never seen mosquitoes, but yet here we have very many of them. So here he came to a point that even though some of these animals are, we call them pests, but they also show God's beauty, that he had a point on creating them. The people were confused and they told him, no, here we have rats, they destroy our crops. What should we do? Yet you say that it's God's creature. So he was like, you should get rats, you know, animals are interdependent on each other. He told to us very many things, but to come to a point is that even here, the ways in which people do feed the animals, at times it differs. And if you take an example, for the cows and the goats with the sheep here, we use the ropes to tie them and take them to the fields where they are going to graze from. Here is my point of concern. These ropes at times try to tighten themselves because we tie them in the neck. And Chris was very much concerned. He asked us very many questions. Why is it that you tie the goats and cows in the neck? We told him we have to put a rope in the neck because we are restricting animals from destroying other people's crops. So here comes a problem where we find that very many animals are dying because the ropes are they tighten the animal to the neck. And at the end of it all, a farmer may end up losing the animal. And another thing, if it's not tied in the neck, others do tie on the legs. So again, it tightens itself, and in the due process, you find that wounds are developing on the animal's body. So in the point here, when Chris told us that no, even animals are like us, I felt much concern and I was like, oh my God, even animals, so we should not even tie them, but again, they will destroy the people's crops. So I wondered and I was like, no, we should invite Chris next time to give us more light as we are trying to explain to people. We get more ideas from him about the concern for animals. And above all, people do starve the animals and others are keeping them in cages. You may find that the animal which would have been free, it is confined into one place. And the caretaker provides the grass to eat. But a point in case when this person is away or sick, it means this animal will starve. And these are the things which people in the community do not care about. If the caretaker is sick, it means the animal will starve. So we need to excuse me, we've been moving to villages and very many people were telling us that, oh, but what you've brought is interesting. It means we have to adopt to this. But why? Because we needed these animals as food. We needed the byproducts like milk. Excuse me.
That's okay.
We needed milk. Yeah, we needed milk from them. Why should then be keeping these animals? They thought that these animals were only created for us to eat and get the byproducts. So it's a journey we are trying to move on with, to make these people aware that these animals do not only exist for us only, but also for themselves and God.
Well, that was a very full response, Resty. You've covered a lot of ground. Let me ask you about one or two of the things that you talked about. In particular, you mentioned that you work with young people and you work with farmers. How influential is Catholic teachings, Catholic concern for animals message amongst those groups? Would they themselves be Catholics, or is it a question of taking a new set of ideas to them?
Thank you very much. In our programs, since we deal with the young ones, at times we do not discriminate. We give it a uniform to everyone, regardless of the religion. But at times we do visit schools which are Catholic based, and they love most to hear about the saints, you know, like Saint Francis of Assisi, who is the patron for animals. They were like, what? We also have a saint for animals? You know, it's good news, and people were not aware that even animals do have saints who love them so much. So they were like, oh, I need to know more about him. And we were like, yes, we should provide information to you about all these saints. And above all, according to the Catholic values, you should also love the animals, since because they are the creatures of God. And above all, you should pray for them. As I was reading the ark, which Chris gave me, it contained very many issues and prayers as far as a Christian must behave and handle the animal. So I was very impressed, because even me, some of the issues I didn't know about, and they were there. Yes, and even the communities also do love that, because again, we still visit the secondary schools. We visit both the Catholic schools and the Muslim schools. We believe that if the Catholic gets the information and gives it to these other students who are Muslims, it means that the communities will change, simply because we live in communities with different religions. And not even schools, but we also meet youths, the diocesan youths and the community youths. So for the diocesan youths, we tell them deeply according to the Catholic faith, how to pray for the animals, how a Christian should behave while handling the animal. You get the point, how I should relate with the animal and other creatures which God created. And we also I'd forgotten, we also do radio programs, but not always. We go to the radio stations. I believe on the listeners are both Catholic and of other religions, but they feel much better, because I was even forgetting that when these animals are taken for slaughter, like the pigs, much pain is felt when they are taken. Like, let's say the example, someone gets the motorcycle, he ties the forward legs and the behind legs, then he twists them together. He squeezes the animal together and puts the animal on the motorcycle. Remember, its seat is so small, and the leaves only sit on the border. So it means, and our roads do have the holes. They are not so much good. So when the motorcycle falls into the holes, you can imagine the pain which is on these animals. So we do explain such things to the Catholics, and they get to know even those of other religions too.
You also mentioned that many of the farmers in Uganda are in poverty, have very few resources. Are they able to change their behaviour, to change their attitudes to animals, and still have a viable farm?
Thank you very much. Simply because because they are unable to earn $1 a day, they think that when you resort to farming, like for example, when you rear your pigs, they will multiply within 6 months. You get my point? Let's say from 1 month to 6 months, if you had raised a pig, within 3 months from the 6th, it will have produced, and the pigs will be in bigger numbers. Excuse me. So they think that if you raise these pigs and they produce, they will be able to earn some smaller amounts. But they do it when they have limited resources. They feel it is an opportunity to go, and they would love to earn a living, provided when it gives birth.
Okay, that's great. Chris, is there anything that you want to introduce here? Anything that you would want to discuss?
No, just to say, firstly, thank you for Resty, because that was fantastic explanation of the situation on the ground in Uganda, and the problems that people have to face daily in trying to care for animals. What I would say immediately is that the relationship in Uganda and perhaps in Africa more generally with animals is much better than the West, the so-called modernized West, where we've heard about some of the issues of animal farming and some of the issues in Uganda, but the way animals are raised there is far superior to the way most animals are raised in the West. We know the industrialized farming that we know about, which is horrendous, absolutely appalling, and so Africa has a lot to teach us about how to look after animals in a farming context, because they have still a relationship with individual animals, whereas the animals that are farmed in the United States and in Europe are just, for the most part anyway, obviously there are some exceptional farms, but for the most part, animals are raised for food in the US and Europe, are industrialized farms in horrendous conditions with no care or attention at all to those individual animals. So despite some of the issues that Resty has mentioned, the African way of producing food for their population is far superior to anything that's done in Europe and the United States. So I'd make that, and that point needs to be emphasized at this point.
Thank you, Chris. I think that's a very interesting point, because in Uganda, Resty, the contact with animals is far more direct, isn't it? I mean, those farmers have a far more personal contact with their animals than many farmers in the West.
Yes, you're right.
How does that affect the way that they approach farming?
Sorry?
How does that affect the way that they approach, the way they do their farming?
How do they? I beg your pardon?
How does it affect the way they see their animals?
Oh, so because at times you may find that someone is unable to feed the animal, most of them end up dying starving. But others, simply because some of them fall sick, and remember, some conditions are not favorable because many of the farmers do not have access to constructing houses where these animals can stay. They end up tying them somewhere in the tree that the tree provides the shade and security at night, though it is being exposed outside. That at times affect the growth of the animal. You may find that once a farmer gets an animal, when it is healthy from another farm, and when beginning to rear it, it fades, it becomes poor, it is not in a good condition because of the environment in which it is in, and that could affect the the quality of its meat, the milk, and the animal itself.
One of the things which has been happening in countries like ours, in America and other places, is that people who people in Catholic Concern for Animals, in people who are concerned about animal welfare, have increasingly changed what they eat, stopped eating animals, stopped eating animal products, become vegan. Is that something which is happening in Uganda?
Not really. We were also surprised when Chris told us that, oh, you have to put down eating animals and you turn to vegan. We copied his tactic and it was wonderful. We enjoyed eating the vegan way of food and it was fine and healthy. But again, simply because these people here think that we keep animals for meat and other products, they will feel at times like, man, why should we rear these animals if we are not to consume them? But a little by little, it will be a process. They will get to know about the vegan diet.
What about animals aren't on farms, your wildlife? Are they seen as also an important resource, an important part of your lives, or are they seen as being a nuisance and a threat?
Sorry?
What about animals which aren't kept for farming, wildlife, the animals who live in your country in the wild? Are they seen as a nuisance and a problem, or are they also seen as something which you need to protect and to look after?
Yes, several programs have come out for the wild animals. Majorly, we keep them we have places where they are kept away from our normal homes, simply because very many of them were too dangerous to us, and we didn't have remedies. The several ways of preventing them from coming to our homes. So they are good, and it's like very many people do love going to the zoos and the game parks to watch them, but they are a threat to our communities, and very many people don't want to live with them because we fear them. We fear them so much, and at times they tend to destroy very many people's crops. That's why they are taken far away. When we see them, the wild animals, they just call the government and they take the wild animals away from us. But we rarely live with them. Only we live with the dogs and the cats here.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Do you think that Uganda is a place where the kind of message that Catholic Concern for Animals has, this message of regarding ourselves as part of creation, as all of creation as being important, do you think that message will take hold in Uganda?
I think we may have lost the connection there temporarily, Gerald.
Yeah, there's been problems with the connection all the way along, Chris. I'm hoping that it will sort itself out.
Well, whilst we're waiting for Resty to come back, just to say about the issue of wildlife, of course. And obviously, you know, when people think of Africa, they traditionally think of the big five, you know, the rhinos, the lions, giraffe, that are obviously often in game reserves. And Resty was mentioning mosquitoes earlier.
Indeed.
Now, obviously, one of the things that Uganda does have is poisonous snakes as well.
Yes.
I'm not particularly sure that I'd be happy. I was, you know, so I had to deal with the mosquito issue whilst I was there. I think I might be, and understand her point entirely, I might be a little bit nervous if a black mamba or a puff adder came crawling into the room while I was there. You can understand these issues. And obviously, she's back. Here we are.
Welcome back, Resty. You're muted. You need to unmute yourself. Resty, your microphone's off. You need to unmute yourself. That's it.
Is
That's
it
fine.
now? Oh,
Yeah, that's
thank
fine.
you. Wow, I'm sorry. It's the poor network coverage.
That's okay. That's not a problem. Don't worry about that. What we were talking about was what was the question asked? I've forgotten now.
Wild animals.
Yes. Because you were saying about the threats from wild animals and the problems. So, and I was saying, I mean, is Uganda a place where the kind of message that Catholic Concern for Animals has about the way that we relate to animals, the way we treat animals, is something which would take hold in Uganda and which Ugandan people might accept?
Yes, yes. And very many people were positive when they heard the CCA message. It was, they had it at heart and were like, wow, we should learn also ourselves to take care of the animals. Maybe, and very many people think that the problems they are facing now, it's because maybe at one time they mistreated the animals. So they were like, wow, we seriously need it, because for the past time, they've been doing things they don't know that they are harming the animals. They didn't know that the animals could play a part to their lives, praise God, and for the beauty of nature.
Indeed, and I mean, I wish a few more people in this country would understand that some of the problems we have is because of the mistreatment of animals. But that's so we need that message. You're obviously very enthusiastic about Chris and what he said in Uganda. Do you think Chris should be visiting more countries like this and taking his message?
Yes, very, very much. Chris should be visiting very, very many places, simply because people do need this. It is a touching information of which we should save the animals, save the nature, love the animals. It is very, very much touching. Knowing, having an animal and you treat it like the way you treat your brother or your sister, it is godly, it is good, it is powerful, it is wonderful. So he should be visiting more other places.
Well,
and we also need him in Uganda once again.
Well, I haven't been able to visit anywhere for the last year.
Absolutely.
But I do. I have to say, my visit to Uganda was one of the best visits I've ever had.
Wow! Thank you.
The welcome that Resty and Father and her colleagues gave me was tremendous, and visiting those rural parishes and rural schools was tremendous. It really, really was. And I think I said at the time when I came back that to see a church absolutely not just packed inside, but all the doors open and people all outside as well because they couldn't get in. There wasn't enough room. I mean, what the Catholic Church in England and Wales would do to have its churches full like that, I can assure you they'd be very, very, very jealous of what I encountered, because the churches were absolutely packed. People actually outside, they couldn't get in. The church was full for service, and the visiting the schools as well. The welcome was tremendous, and it was really good. And although, as Resty said, the message was quite new, what I was saying, it was received, and and thought about. It wasn't rejected on the spot, and that was very positive. People, it was a new message in many respects, but it was a message that people were prepared to listen to, which was very encouraging. So I would be going back to Uganda, God willing, and and COVID allowing, and I will be going back, and possibly next year, because
Wow.
we're hoping to work on a project with you, with you know, an education project. We've already started that by the visit and by
Yes.
days like today, but we intend to try and work even further and on this this project regarding not only farming but animal care generally. One of the things we haven't mentioned is fish, and I don't want to let the discussion go without talking about fish.
Okay.
Resty's views on this in a minute. Just that my understanding, and she will be able to discuss it further, is that traditionally fish have been caught in places like Lake Victoria. Now, you know, aquaculture is coming to Uganda in a big way,
Yes.
and fish farms are starting to be developed. And I believe with support from overseas, particularly, I think the Chinese government may be involved in some of those major new developments. So, that is an interesting development, the aquaculture, whereas I think relatively small based, but is now becoming quite large. Is that correct, Resty?
Yeah, it is very correct.
Yeah. So that's an issue as well, because, you know, we were talking earlier, weren't we, about the traditional Ugandan farming of the individual families and individual people. But now, and that obviously also was in regards to fish as well, by catching fish, you know, in the lakes and rivers. But now we're talking about commercial aquaculture. And let's be under no doubt, aquaculture is industrialized farming in cases. So that is an interesting and perhaps in some ways worrying development, which I want to find more about on my next visit, I think.
Okay. All right. Yes.
So do you have any kind of experience? I mean, are there fish farms, or is there fishing which you see in your area?
Yes, we have very many ponds, you know, as Chris has said, very many people are resorting from fishing from the lakes, because at first we used to do fishing on the lakes, rivers, and they introduced aquaculture where people are now digging ponds for fish. It is unfortunate to the fishermen that our government stopped very many fishermen from going to fishing, but it was their economic activity, and very many people there are affected, and very many people are now crying, you know, you should let us do the fishing. They introduced a law whereby you are not supposed to do fishing without having the recommendation from the government. When the nets are not of the quality that the government needs, very many people were chased from fishing. So they decided to develop aquaculture, whereby very many people had to dig ponds so that they can do fishing, they can rear their fish and then sell to the markets.
So why did the government bring in those regulations? Do you know? Was that because of concerns about the number of fish in the lake?
Yes, before they used to catch small fish which has not developed enough.
Yes.
So they decided to restrict such that the numbers can increase and the sizes are a little bit big. That's why they had to put into place those regulations to restrict them from doing fishing, so that the numbers can increase and the sizes are bigger, whereby even some species of fish were becoming rare because of overfishing.
Right. Okay, it's very interesting.
I mean, sorry, Gerald. That initially is like a positive move regarding mesh sizes and the attempt to stop the catching of too small fish. But if it's driving people to aquaculture, it may be a side effect, a very bad side effect. I don't know, but and that's why I want to look at in more detail when I go next time. So obviously, you know, this you know, you want to protect small fish. You don't want, you know, too many fish being caught at a very juvenile age. On the other hand, you don't want to drive people into aquaculture, which may even be worse. So there's some interesting. I mean, obviously, like anything, these are complicated issues. There's no easy answer to any of these issues. But I think it's an increasing issue in Uganda and possibly other parts of Africa, the rise of aquaculture as opposed to traditional fishing methods.
And it is commonly advisable to majority of them that it's one way of making money, so that if at all the numbers here of people who do eat fish are high, and it's like the fish which they get from the lakes are not enough to satisfy the demands of people. So they decided to tell people to resort to aquaculture.
Resty,
Yes.
Can I just finish by asking you how these kind of ideas, the idea of treating creation as something which we're part, how has that affected you personally? Have you changed in your behaviour and the way you view things because of that?
Yes, very much. When Chris left, we are left with very many questions within our hearts, and we felt like, no, we should also adopt to this, because once we save the animals, once we feed them very well, it means that we are also adding something to God's creation. And above all, he taught us of how to feed on the vegan diet, because we thought that by then that when you don't eat meat, you feel like, and we told this to him earlier when he had come, that here, when a visitor comes, you have to prepare a dish having meat, milk, and he was like, no, that's not the way to go. Me, I'm a vegan. I do feed on vegetables. We were surprised that he ate vegetables from day one, not until the day he left. So we are like, wow, this is also part of life. We should also change for the betterment of God's creation. We should serve God's creation, as he was so much concerned of how the ways we could treat the animals. We also felt like, wow, I cannot go away from my home when I've not taken care of my animals. First, when I'm out of the bed, I should make sure that every animal has something to eat. And even though when I'm selling it to these people who take it, I should make sure they take it in a proper way, that it is not being hurt, because it also feels the pain. But by then we thought that they were animals, and after all, they don't possess this, and they don't talk above all. And we thought that they were animals who, however much they feel harm, but they could not feel it to our expectations. So by now we feel it's right to love them. And I was amazed when he told us you should even pray for the animals. I said, what? Praying for the animals? But this time it's good. I feel people should know about it. And above all, you give us the opportunity, because it's like you don't force us to do it. But if you accept it and say, please, my heart, you should care for the animals, God is creation, you feel the happiness within you, because it's like you adding value to what God has created.
That's terrific, Resty. Thank you very much for being with us today. Thank you for your enthusiasm and your freshness. That's just been absolutely brilliant.
Can I just say one final thing, Gerald?
Yeah, go on, Chris.
Final thing. The food they gave me was gorgeous, absolutely wonderful, and it was fresh local produce, fresh local vegetables, and of course they gave me lots of potatoes with Manchester background was very greatly so we had lots of potato, didn't we? It was wonderful. So they gave me wonderful food.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much. We can't wait seeing you.
Yeah, well, indeed. Hopefully, as soon as this pandemic's over, then Chris will be on his travels again and be able to visit you amongst others. And as I said, once again, thank you, Resty. Very much like to have you back at some stage to see how things are going in Uganda and to update us on what's happening out there. But thank you very much for giving us that insight into your country and into your diocese. It's been very refreshing. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Well,
I'm humble.
You are very your enthusiasm is infectious, and that's fantastic. So thank you for that. And thank you for watching our YouTube vlog. This comes the end of this YouTube vlog. We hope you've enjoyed watching it and enjoy watching others in the future, and begin to see a different perspective, new views on the things that we all believe in and want to take forward. So thank you.
Oh, thank you too.
Thank you.